Hey everyone, you are watching Board Game Talk on inthirdperson.com. My name is Jet, and today on the show we are going to be debating the value proposition of Pandemic Legacy and other legacy style games. This one's going to require some setup. So, Pandemic, like most board games, is a game you can play forever. You will set up the board, you will play out to see if you can cure the 4 major diseases throughout the world, and when the game is over, you can reset all of the pieces and play again. This doesn't hold true for Pandemic Legacy. This game is structured in a way where there is a fixed story that goes from beginning to end, and as you're playing through the game, you are making permanent changes to the game's components. You're putting stickers on the board, you are ripping up cards, you are scratching out cards, you're opening boxes, and by the time you reach the very end of the campaign, this is pretty much unplayable. Pandemic Legacy was not the game that started it. It was actually Risk Legacy from a couple of years before, and other games of its kind have followed since. The next big trend in a legacy style gaming is the escape room game. So I'm holding one example here. This is Escape Room the game. In these style games, they mimic the escape room experience where you're trying to solve a series of puzzles in a set amount of time. Once you've solved all the puzzles, there's no reason to go back and play this game because you already know all the answers. Some of the games in this format have performed really well. Risk Legacy, very well received. Time Stories, personally one of my all-time favorite games and one of the top games on Board Game Geek. Pandemic Legacy, as of recording, the #1 ranked board game of all time. So clearly a lot of people like this format of being able to make permanent changes to the game. However, it's also sparked a backlash from gamers who don't like the format, in particular the value proposition. In their eyes, they hate the idea of board games being disposable. They like the idea of board games being like all the other board games they have, where their grandfather gave them their copy of chess and they can play it as many times as they want, and they'll pass it down to their grandkids to say that my grandfather had this copy of chess, and that they can play these games forever. While I get that perspective, I think that if you're avoiding playing a legacy style game because of that, I think you're selling yourself short. Let's use video games for an example. Pac-Man is a game that has one level in it that you play over and over again. And while that game is considered a classic and it's fun, it's limited because it's one board that you are playing over and over again. Versus something like Super Mario Bros., which has a story, as loose as that story is, of Mario going from place A to place B to save the princess. And it is able to do things that Pac-Man doesn't because it's set up in a way that allows players to have a different type of journey that takes them through different worlds. The difference between Pandemic and Pandemic Legacy is largely the same. So in Pandemic, you are playing one board over and over again versus, put that down, Pandemic Legacy, where you're playing a set campaign that goes from point A to point B, and the journey along the way is really worthwhile and something that classic Pandemic could not have done in its current format. All of the good legacy games make that aspect of permanence matter. So for example, in Pandemic Legacy, when you get to the last level of the game, and when I finished it, I thought about it in hindsight and I was like, wow, actually every choice that we made, every marking that we made on the board ended up mattering. And it was really awesome to see all of our decisions that led up to that one moment ended up mattering in the final outcome. And for that, I applaud this game. And as much as I love Classic Pandemic would not have paid off in the same way that Pandemic Legacy did. As long as the game is good, it doesn't matter to me if it's a game I could play over and over again or it's a game that I can't play anymore like this one. I feel like the journey that I went through to finish this game paid off big time. Because of the payoff, I don't think it's fair to say that Pandemic is better than Pandemic Legacy because I can play this one many times and I can play this one once. They're both awesome, they just pay off in different ways. This one I can play over and over again and it's pretty great throughout, versus this one which was maybe it doesn't last as long, but the experience of playing it from beginning to end was incredible. Ultimately, I'm not here to tell you how to spend your money. If the idea of buying a board game that doesn't last forever isn't appealing to you, don't. However, don't let the idea of a game not lasting forever stop you from playing a game like Pandemic Legacy or Risk Legacy or Time Stories or any of the upcoming escape room games. When done well, they provide an experience that a traditionally formatted board game just can't provide, and for that, it is awesome. In that sense, the journey makes the cost totally worth it. So that's it for this episode of Board Game Talk. I would love to hear your thoughts on Pandemic Legacy and this concept of disposable board games. Do you like them? Do you not like them? Do you think that they're a ripoff? Let me know in the comments. And of course, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and check out the website, inthirdperson.com, for more articles and videos on video games, board games, comic books, and other nerdy pursuits. So until next time, I'm Jet from inthirdperson.com, and thank you for watching.